Pre-F1 era, 1894 to 1900. It was July 22nd, 1894, when 21 crews made history. Paris was echoing with the roars of engines as history's first ever automobile race was going on in its streets.
Who has first place, but Piastri caused him a huge headache. He's second, then it's Russell, Leclerc.
In that era, men were quite fascinated with engines and automobiles. They wanted to test their abilities and push their limits to no limits. The elite class and media sensed their people's needs, so a French newspaper, Le Petit Journal, decided to host the first automobile race. The name and details of this race were quite comic. It was a competition of horseless carriages that had no racetracks, no circuits, no grandstands, and no Formula One. The route of this horseless carriage race was from Paris to Rouen. It was roughly 126 kilometers, and let me tell you, it was hellish terrain by today's standards. It contained dusty village paths, stone-paved roads, and even livestock blockades. The goal wasn't just to go fast, it was to make it there, alive. Now, who was the winner? Well, it was a tie. No one sang this song at the end of this historic competition. On, we are the champion. Peugeot and Panhard et Levasseur shared the crown because their cars were considered the most practical and safe. Now, don't be fooled by the word safe because deaths and accidents were common in such unstructured racing games. Formula Libre regulations, 1900 to 1945. A man and his wife stood on the street, holding a bottle of wine and a handkerchief. Their eyes were fixed on the road as the man took a swig from the bottle, and the woman waved her handkerchief in a ladylike manner. The crowd around them roared as racers sped past. Suddenly, a car struck the couple and burst into flames. Now, their lifeless bodies lie on the road, while the driver burns alive inside the car.
A strangely unconcerned crowd, then burst into flames.
This was the common scene of automobile racing in the early 20th century, so surely no one wanted to be a part of it.
Edinburgh joins the 100,000 enthusiasts on the course for the day's big event, the International Trophy Race, as the VRM moves up to the start.
Well, it seemed like people were crazy at that time. Across Europe and America, a new class of thrill-seekers emerged. These were those gentleman drivers who were rich, had a lot of time, and wanted to do deadly adventures. As a result, the Gordon Bennett Cup was established in 1900, followed by the Targa Florio in 1906. America launched its own racing competition, the Indianapolis 500, in 1911, while Europe gave shape to Grand Prix racing in the 1920s. In that era, engineers were gods, cars were their experimental laboratories, and players were their casualties. They used to create automobiles without any guidelines or concerns for human safety. Single-seated automobile races were common across Europe and the UK, where privately owned teams used to race. By 1931, this wild, untamed racing spirit took its first official form. One of the earliest elite racing competitions, the European Drivers' Championship, was introduced. Officials introduced Formula Libre regulations here to avoid any cheating. It was the first time the word formula was introduced in the automobile race. These regulations were a set of rules to prevent unfairness in the race, not to protect the lives of the drivers.
Every car to be able to get around the track as fast as physically possible to get as many points for the championship every season.
This chaos and madness were interrupted first by World War I and then by World War II. Racers went to wars, and for several dark years, the roar of engines was silenced. Postwar Rebirth, 1946 to 1950. When the chaos of World War II ended and racers came back from the war alive, they decided to risk their lives in a race. It seemed like they were disappointed with being alive and wanted to hug death as soon as possible. So, in 1946, FIA emerged as the new guardian of the sport, codifying the very first official motor race regulations. They called their race competitions Formula One. Yes, the name has become official. At this point, Formula One wasn't a championship. In fact, it was just a survival war between 4.5-liter naturally aspirated engines versus 1.5-liter supercharged engines. The rest of the rules were blurred, and safety concerns were a myth. Cars that were being used in world wars were the racing car of that era. And the king among them was the Alfa Romeo 158. If we talk about drivers, they were literally legends. Achille Varzi was the tragic legend who survived the war but died during a racing practice in Switzerland in 1948. Reg Parnell and Giuseppe Farina are some other exceptional drivers of that time. They were not athletes, but gunfighters standing 10 feet from death every Sunday. The birth of Formula One, 1950 to 1957. It was May 13, 1950, location was Silverstone, England, when history was made. The first official Formula One World Championship race takes place.
Staged in Britain, the Daily Express meeting at Silverstone sees Britain's national racing car making a trial run of the circuit before its first racing appearance.
The Union Jack waved, fighter jets roared overhead in tribute. The audience was charged, and men prepared to risk their lives wearing leather helmets and no seat belts. Cars were deadly with their poor engines, skinny tires, drum brakes, and no regard for aerodynamics. The first crown of the Formula One championship goes to Nino Farina. He was an Italian driver who didn't drive a Ferrari but an Alfa Romeo.
He is number 4 in the strong Italian Alfa Romeo team, with only 6 British cars included.
Yes, you heard that right. Enzo Ferrari's Scarlet cars were not the immediate kings of the kingdom. They had to earn their throne. And they started their journey by earning their first win in 1951.
For the unbeaten Alfa Romeo team, and G. Farina, the fastest man in Europe, wins from his teammate Fangio by 2/5 of a second at 90.16 miles an hour.
Farina, Fangio, Ascari, and Moss were the first warriors of Formula One lore. Fangio won 5 world championships from 1950 to 1957 and set a record that remained unbroken for nearly half a century.
But Fangio's there too, breaking the lap record time and again. And he takes the lead in the nick of time. He streaks for the line 150 yards ahead of Hawthorne.
Fangio has just driven the race of his life and won his 5th world title.
This era had one heartbroken incident that remains the worst disaster in motorsport history. It was June 11, 1955, when a horrific crash involving Mercedes driver Pierre Levey occurred. His car flew into the crowd, killing 83 spectators and injuring nearly 200 more. After this, Mercedes-Benz withdrew from Formula One.
Levey's Mercedes collides and blows up. In a few ghastly seconds, death wipes out whole families.
Mid-engine era, 1958 to 1961. Until 1957, the front engine layout was famous, but then the Cooper team made history by introducing a mid-engine layout. They were fiddling with Formula 3 cars and in the process introduced a revolutionary concept. At first, the front engine elite laughed. They called Cooper's designs unstable, underpowered, and unworthy. But when Sterling Moss and Jack Brabham started winning, the paddock went silent.
The flag was carried high by 20-year-old Sterling Moss in car number 18.
In 1959, Jack Brabham won the World Championship in a Cooper. In 1960, he did it again. Well, I don't need to tell you this, but by 1961, front engine layout became history.
225 miles at an average of just under 90 miles an hour. Aintree.
Something else also happened in 1958. The sport expanded its scope by introducing the Constructors' Championship, honoring the teams building the cars that powered these gladiators of speed. Van Wall took the first crown, marking the beginning of the team rivalries that would shape decades. British Takeover, 1962 to 1966. Cooper was British and developed the basis of engineering brilliance. Once the engine flipped, the entire balance of power shifted toward Britain. Teams and drivers of Britain started rewriting the rulebook. Among these teams, Lotus emerged. It was founded by Colin Chapman, who was a mad scientist on wheels. Lotus pushed aerodynamics, monocoque chassis design, and even ground effect in the world of Formula One. These revolutionary cars made the British a prominent name in this sport. With these cars, Lotus also gave us a legend, Jim Clark. This calm, clinical, and fastest natural Formula One talent won the 1963 and 1965 championships. Unfortunately, his career was cut short in 1968.
Jim Clark. In 3 hours, he covered just over 290 miles at an average of 97.2 miles an hour.
This era also saw the rise of the future titan, Williams. The team started as a privateer in 1963, racing with Ford engines and a budget made of dreams and duct tape. But the DNA of greatness was already there. In this time period, the British also changed the face of Formula One's safety movements. The pioneer of it was Jackie Stewart.
Put in a staggering time of 1 minute 31.5 seconds to snatch pole from Jackie Ickx in the Ferrari.
After surviving a crash in 1966 and being trapped in fuel for 25 minutes, Stewart decided to introduce safety measures for Formula One drivers. Due to his struggles, we are seeing barriers, medical response, helmets, and seatbelts for racers in today's Formula One competitions. His campaign changed how drivers were viewed, not daredevils, but professionals. Sponsorship and star power, 1967 to 1976. If the Lotus 25 was the revolution, 1967 was the detonation. This year, the Ford Cosworth DFV engine entered. It was commissioned by Ford, developed by Cosworth, and married to Lotus's genius. It was cheap, powerful, modular, and reliable. In short, it was everything privateer teams dreamed of. By the way, to this point, F1 has become a global spectacle. The Lotus 49 was powered by DFV and helped Jim Clark win the championship in its first trial. By the 1970s, this engine was everywhere.
The champion's home, a good winner.
With DFV, sponsorships were also everywhere. What really happened was that Formula One became quite expensive for privateers. Endless crashes, regulation changes, and yes, life insurance made teams' lives difficult. In this scenario, players agreed to advertise the products of different brands in exchange for a small fee. They started advertising almost everything that would give them money. It includes condoms, cigarettes, and musicians. Something else also happened in 1970. Cars got wings. Inspired by aviation, teams began slapping aeroplane-like aerofoils on their cars. In this scenario, enter Lotus 72. It was perhaps the most futuristic Formula One car ever built at the time. Enough of the tech era, and let's talk about the heartbeats of the 1970s. James Hunt and Niki Lauda are the two champions of that time.
Well now, James, they've changed the regulations concerning the airboxes and the wings, and yet you're still extremely fast. How do you do it?
Big balls.
How did the car handle?
I had no problem with the car at all. The car was perfect.
These rookies provided so much drama and fun to Formula One fans that they even forgot the womanizing scandals of James Hunt. Their battle came to a head in 1976, a season so intense it inspired the film Rush. In this season, Lauda faced a fatal crash at the Nürburgring that burned him quite badly. But just 42 days later, he returned. Wrapped in bandages, bleeding in the helmet, he raced again. The final race was in Japan, where rain was pouring on the dusty terrain. In this season, James Hunt and Niki Lauda fought for their glory. Though Hunt won the championship, Lauda won hearts. Ground effect and turbo teasing, 1977 to 1982. This whole greatness went into the ground effect era, where Lotus again detonated the very concept of car design. Lotus 78 and 79 use underfloor aerodynamics and skirted side pods. They created a vacuum under the car that gave astonishing speed to the car and thrill to the audience. Seeing its success, Brabham thought, why should I stay behind? He came up with his fan car, which had ground effect along with a giant fan at the back. Niki Lauda used it and won its only championship with ease. It was so smooth that other teams became jealous of it. Formula One officials tried to cool them down, but their politics were getting out of hand. At last, one of the officials said, I have a solution. Ban this fan car. Then, in 1977, Renault came up with a plan so bold it bordered on madness. He introduced the first turbocharged Formula One engine. It was unreliable, but provided a glimpse into the future. Here, McLaren thought, why should we remain in the background? In 1981, they introduced the first full carbon fiber monocoque chassis. It was incredibly safe that John Watson survived a 140+ miles per hour crash that would have been fatal in a traditional chassis. This marked the beginning of a new era. While players and engineers were busy changing Formula One, a political war was going on between FOCA and FISA. These constructor associations were fighting for dominance in Formula One. FOCA was backed by private teams such as Williams, and FISA was backed by big manufacturers such as Alfa Romeo. They split the grid and gave way to politics in Formula One. Turbo Wars and the Senna-Prost saga, 1983 to 1991. By 1983, turbocharged engines took full control of the Formula One grid. BMW-powered Brabham stormed to the 1983 World Championship with Nelson Piquet behind the wheel, proving turbos could deliver speed. But if we talk about reliability, there was none. The roar of turbos was as much a warning of impending engine failure as it was a battle cry. Honda and McLaren combined forces in 1988 to create a turbocharged Honda engine. It was so powerful that it won 15 races out of 16. But fuel limits made it quite expensive, so officials banned it in 1989. Among this revolutionary tech era, there were a couple of rookies who could be described with only one word: excellence. Who were these? Well, one was Alain Prost, who was a calm tactician and simply sensational. He won the 1985 and 1986 championships.
Brazilian passes another, and we've got a third leader before even one lap has been completed.
The other one was Ayrton Senna, who was a fiery speed demon. His mesmerizing driving skills would make you forget that he was dating a minor at that time.
His home race in front of his adoring fans in Sao Paulo. Qualifying on pole.
Their rivalry is a headline of the Formula One era. Their partnership was electric and toxic. Their battles on and off the track escalated to legendary levels of tension and drama. This rivalry was concluded in 1990 in a most controversial way. Senna deliberately crashed into Prost at the first corner, ensuring Prost's retirement and his second world championship.
Prost has taken the advantage. Senna is trying to go through on the inside, and it's happened immediately. This is amazing. Senna goes off at the first corner.
What? Did you expect anything less brutal? Williams and the next wave, 1992 to 1993. It was 1992, and Williams was thinking one thing: why don't we dominate the grid for the next 2 years? For this, they introduced active suspension technology. And then we saw Nigel Mansell winning the 1992 championship with Williams.
Dropping downhill, he will go into turn 10, the second gear, 60 mile an hour.
It was one of the most dominant seasons of Formula One, where Mansell won 9 out of 16 races, often finishing far ahead of his rivals. He was succeeded by Alain Prost, who secured his 4th championship title with Williams before retiring. The tragic reset, 1994. With these championships, they entered 1994. Every Formula One fan was excited for this year as Senna was moving to Williams to replace Prost, the rising star Michael Schumacher was given a competitive car at Benetton, and Ferrari had hopes of a rebound year. With high hopes, they started another thrilling race weekend in April, at the San Marino Grand Prix. But what unfolded over those 3 days would shock the world, tear the sport apart, and forever alter the trajectory of Formula One. Friday, April 29, 1994, experienced the first blow of 1994 when Brazilian rookie Rubens Barrichello suffered a horrific accident at the Tamburello corner. His car flipped violently after a front wing failure. Miraculously, Barrichello survived with relatively minor injuries, but the crash underscored the desperate need for safer circuits and car design. Formula One was rejoicing in the survival of Rubens when, on Saturday, April 30th, Austrian rookie Roland Ratzenberger lost control at the high-speed Villeneuve corner during qualifying. His car hit a concrete wall and he instantly died in the accident. The paddock fell into stunned silence. The Formula One world was absorbing this horror when the next day, on May 1st, Ayrton Senna died. His life was claimed by the same Tamburello corner that injured Rubens Barrichello. The crowd, the teams, and the entire sporting world were left reeling at this tragic loss. As if these tragedies were not enough, Formula One saw a bitter controversy. Michael Schumacher captured his first world championship in a tense battle with British driver Damon Hill. But the title fight ended with a rivalry. In the final race, Schumacher collided with Hill while leading, causing both to retire. Hill accused him of doing it intentionally, but this matter remained unresolved. Renault Domination and End of Privateers, 1995 to 1999. It is 1995, and Williams is still dominating Formula One. Its cars, powered by Renault engines, ruled the mid to late 1990s. They combined cutting-edge chassis, Renault power, and top driver talent to create an unbeatable formula. This formula helped Damon Hill win the championship in 1996. It also helped Jacques Villeneuve take the crown in 1997.
The first Canadian to be crowned Formula One World Champion. He finished third in the European Grand Prix after championship rival Michael Schumacher span out following a collision with Villeneuve 20 laps from the end.
But Renault's domination ended quite abruptly in 1997. Before Formula One panicked about it, Mercedes and McLaren jumped in, providing new engines that revolutionized Formula One. When everyone was happy with it, there was one group that was suffering. These were privateers. All these tech changes were taking a toll on their budget, and in the 1990s, they completely vanished from Formula One. Lotus, Ligier, and Tyrrell became the victims of financial strain and political wars of FISA and FOCA. Only privateer Jordan Grand Prix managed to survive. The golden age of Schumacher, 2000 to 2005. 2000, a new millennial era in Formula One that started with the domination of Schumacher. The golden age of this magnificent driver was already shaping when he won his first world championship in 1994 and the second one in 1995 with the help of the Renault V10 engine. But his domination era took a drastic turn in 1997 when he deliberately crashed into Villeneuve. This resulted in suspension.
He's going through! Oh yes! I don't think. Out goes Michael Schumacher!
After this downfall, Schumacher, along with Ferrari, entered 2000 to make history. At this point, no driver had won more than 2 titles in a row for over 4 decades. But Ferrari and Schumacher were going to change this. From 2000 to 2004, Schumacher won 5 consecutive world championships, rewriting Formula One's record books. The 3 years were of absolute dominance of Ferrari, as in 2002 it scored more points than all other teams combined. This resulted in the decline of Renault and McLaren engines. At last, Renault had had enough of Ferrari boosting its successes, so it played a gamble and introduced a fresh talent to challenge the established order. In 2005, Fernando Alonso burst onto the scene and became the youngest double world champion, stealing all the spotlight from Schumacher.
We're going to have big problems later if we don't.
Already I have big problems now.
V8 engines and McLaren drama, 2006 to 2009. The 2006 season marked a seismic shift in Formula One's heart. The screaming V10 engines were dominating at this point. But now, silent and systematic V8 engines were introduced. Cars became lighter and more nimble, with teams scrambling to adjust their chassis and aerodynamics to the new power plants. This season also saw the rise of Fernando Alonso as he won his second world championship. In 2007, McLaren started plotting a secret strategy to win the championship. Their plan was simple: sign the defending champion Alonso along with an inexperienced rookie to avoid any tension or rivalries. Everything was going smoothly, but McLaren made a very slight error that cost them almost £100 million. By mistake, they hired rookie Lewis Hamilton, who became a sensation in no time.
Hamilton comes out onto the racetrack now, and is he going to be ahead of Lando Norris?
As expected, the team exploded with tension that led to the Spygate scandal. McLaren was caught possessing Ferrari's confidential technical data, threatening the team with exclusion and fines. This whole drama ended when Kimi Räikkönen won the title with 1 point over both McLaren drivers. But this didn't stop Lewis Hamilton from becoming the youngest world champion ever in 2008.
And there's Max Verstappen right behind Hamilton into the first chicane. Once again, it's wheel to wheel. Hamilton and Verstappen!
Downsizing in Red Bull era, 2009 to 2013. The world was recovering from the 2008 financial crisis, so Formula One made some drastic changes in the technology to cut the cost. This downsizing helped Brawn GP, a scrappy privateer team, dominate the 2009 season before other dominating teams with big budgets could catch up. This gave rise to Jenson Button, who made history by using the new technology DRS button in his Ferrari and winning the competition. This team was first crushed by Mercedes-Benz and then by Red Bull.
This Italian Grand Prix underway, the youngest ever Formula One pole sitter with a tremendous responsibility. Kovalainen is itching to get on with this race. Vettel hits it and away we go. We're racing at Monza. Sebastian Vettel leads a Grand Prix.
This is Sebastian Vettel, to whom Red Bull gave wings in the early 2010s. He took full advantage of it and won 4 consecutive world championships from 2010 to 2013. Turbo Hybrid Era and Hamilton Dominance, 2014 to 2021. 2014 saw a new tech era of Formula One, as 1.6-liter V6 turbocharged hybrid engines were introduced by a constructor who returned after almost 54 years. It combined traditional combustion with cutting-edge electric power through an advanced energy recovery system, ERS. While many teams struggled to adapt, Mercedes-AMG Petronas revolutionized their cars and dominated almost every weekend race of that season. At the heart of Mercedes' dominance was a rivalry that electrified the sport. We are talking about Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg.
And it's Nico Rosberg, and Hamilton's onto the grass, and Hamilton's had a massive crash, and he's crashed into his teammate.
Their brutal civil war dominated the grid from 2014 to 2016 and ended with Rosberg retiring. After this, from 2017 through 2020, Lewis Hamilton ascended to unparalleled greatness by winning 4 consecutive world championships. He made Formula One history by gaining 7 world championships. But his dominant era was halted by the young, ruthless Max Verstappen of Red Bull Racing in 2021. The championship battle stretched to a nail-biting finale in Abu Dhabi.
Hamilton into the first chicane once again. It's wheel to wheel. Hamilton and Verstappen, and this time Verstappen and Hamilton have crashed out, and they are both out.
A late safety car incident and controversial race director decisions tipped the scales, with Hamilton watching Verstappen claiming his first world championship. In this way, Mercedes' dominant era ended. post-Hamilton era 2021 to present. After the explosive 2021 finale, Verstappen and Red Bull exploded into outright dominance, carving out a new dynasty on the grid. They continue to dominate in 2025. Mercedes is trying to outrun Red Bull with the help of Lewis Hamilton. The two iconic teams, Ferrari and McLaren, long absent from title contention, worked feverishly to close the gap. Ferrari experienced flashes of brilliance with Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz.
Sebastian Vettel goes past. Charles Leclerc has gone straight on.
But consistency and reliability issues still held them back from fully challenging the top two. McLaren, energized by Lando Norris, might come back to its glory. With this, a new rule is being introduced in this sport. F1's governing body doubled down on efforts to make the sport more competitive, affordable, and eco-conscious.